The 15th of March, 1967, Marcus Babyface Williams was 23 years old, cocky as hell, and absolutely convinced he could kill Bumpy Johnson. The gun trembled in his hands as he crouched behind the dumpster outside Small's Paradise, waiting for the 60-year-old man everyone called the King of Harlem. Marcus had been watching Bumpy for weeks, studying his routine, convinced the old man had gotten soft, slow, vulnerable. What Marcus didn't know was that Bumpy Johnson had been watching him right back. At 11:47 p.m., Marcus saw his target. Bumpy walked out of Small's Paradise alone, moving slowly, using a walking cane for the first time in his life. Age and a recent heart attack had finally caught up to the legend. This was Marcus's moment. He raised his gun, aimed at the old man's back, and pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing. Marcus pulled the trigger again. Click. The gun was empty. Before he could process what had happened, two sets of hands grabbed him from behind. Willie, Fishes Jackson, and Raymond Quick Lewis, Bumpy's most trusted lieutenants, dragged Marcus out of the alley. Bumpy Johnson turned around slowly, walked over to where Marcus was being held, and looked down at the young man who'd just tried to kill him. "Son," Bumpy said quietly, "you just made the biggest mistake of your very short life. But you might also be about to get the best education you'll ever receive." This is the story of 24 hours that changed a young killer into something else entirely. The night Bumpy Johnson gave his final lesson to the streets of Harlem. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand Marcus Williams. Born and raised in Harlem, he'd grown up hearing stories about Bumpy Johnson like they were fairy tales. The man who faced down Dutch Schultz, who made deals with Lucky Luciano, who controlled Harlem for 30 years without bowing to anyone. But by 1967, those stories felt ancient to Marcus. He was part of a new generation of street criminals who saw the old ways as outdated. Why build respect over decades when you could take what you wanted with violence? Why negotiate when you could eliminate? Why play chess when you could flip the board? Marcus had been dealing drugs in Harlem for 3 years, building his own crew, stepping on toes that belonged to Bumpy's organization. When Bumpy's people approached him about paying tribute, Marcus laughed in their faces. When they warned him about territorial boundaries, he ignored them. When they suggested a meeting to work things out, Marcus decided it was time to remove the old obstacle permanently. The old man's finished, Marcus had told his crew 2 weeks earlier. Heart attack last month, walking with a cane, moving slow, time for new blood to take over. What Marcus didn't understand was that Bumpy Johnson's power had never come from his physical strength. It came from his intelligence, his network, his ability to see 10 moves ahead. And right now, sitting in the back room of Small's Paradise with his hands tied behind his chair, Marcus was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Bumpy entered the room at midnight, followed by Fish and Quick. He sat down across from Marcus, studying the young man like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "You know, son, I've been in this game for 40 years. I've seen a lot of young men like you, ambitious, violent, impatient. Most of them are dead now." Marcus tried to maintain his defiance. "You are finished, old man. This is my time now." Bumpy smiled. "Your time, boy. You couldn't even load a gun properly. You think I didn't know you were coming for me? I've known for 2 weeks. I've been watching you watch me, studying your routine just like you thought you were studying mine." He leaned forward. "That gun you tried to use. I had Fish here, switch out the bullets while you were eating dinner at Mama's kitchen 3 hours ago. You never even noticed him at the next table." Marcus's face went pale. The confidence drained out of him like air from a punctured balloon. "Now, here is what is going to happen," Bumpy continued. "I could kill you right now. One phone call and you'd disappear forever. Your crew would scatter, your territory would be absorbed into my organization, and in 6 months, nobody would even remember your name." Marcus was starting to sweat. "So why don't you?" "Because I am tired of killing children who don't know any better. Because maybe, just maybe, I can teach you something that might keep you alive long enough to matter." Bumpy stood up. "For the next 24 hours, you are going to be my student. I am going to show you how real power works. Not the kind you think you understand, but the kind that lasts, the kind that builds legacies instead of graveyards. The first lesson began at 1 a.m. Bumpy took Marcus to see Mrs. Henderson, a 67-year-old widow who lived in a run-down tenement on 125th Street. Her apartment was small but clean, filled with photographs of her late husband and her 3 sons, all of whom had died in Vietnam. "Mrs. Henderson," Bumpy said gently. "This is Marcus. He is learning about how we do business in Harlem." Mrs. Henderson offered them tea, which Bumpy accepted gracefully. Marcus sat uncomfortably, unsure why they were visiting an elderly woman in the middle of the night. "Tell Marcus about your rent," Bumpy said. Mrs. Henderson looked embarrassed. "Mr. Johnson, you know I don't like to complain. Go ahead. He needs to hear this." "Well, the landlord keeps raising it. It is up to $180 a month now, and I only get $94 from Social Security. I don't know what I am going to do." Bumpy reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Mrs. Henderson, your rent is taken care of for the next year. Don't worry about it anymore." After they left, Marcus couldn't contain his confusion. "Why the hell did you do that?" "She can't pay you back. That is the point," Bumpy said. "Power isn't just about taking, son. It is about giving." Mrs. Henderson's been living in Harlem for 40 years. She knows every family on her block, every kid who is getting into trouble, every whisper about what is happening in the neighborhood. She is my eyes and ears, and she is loyal to me because I take care of her. The second lesson came at 3 a.m., when they visited Tony's barber shop on Lenox Avenue. The shop was closed, but Tony Martinelli was waiting for them inside. Tony was a small, nervous Italian man who'd been cutting hair in Harlem for 25 years. "Tony's got a problem," Bumpy explained to Marcus. "Tell him about the protection racket." Tony wrung his hands anxiously. "These guys came in last week, said I need to pay them $200 a month for protection. But I have an arrangement." "What arrangement?" Marcus asked. "I pay Mr. Johnson $50 a month," Tony said, "and in return, nobody bothers me. Nobody robs my shop, nobody breaks my windows, nobody threatens my customers." Bumpy nodded. "Fair price for real protection. These new guys want 4 times as much, and they can't deliver half the security." "So what are you going to do?" Marcus asked. "Watch and learn." At 3:30 a.m., 3 young men entered the barber shop. They looked tough, confident, ready to collect their first payment from Tony. When they saw Bumpy sitting in the barber chair, they hesitated. "We're closed," the leader said. "You need to leave." "I don't think so," Bumpy replied calmly. "You are the ones who need to leave. And you need to forget you ever heard of this barber shop." The leader laughed. "Old man, you don't know who you are dealing with." "Actually, I do. You are Stevie Romano, from Queens. Your boss is Vincent Torino. You've been trying to expand into Harlem for 6 months, and you think you can intimidate local businesses into paying tribute." The laughter stopped. Stevie's hand moved toward his jacket. "I wouldn't," Bumpy said quietly. "Fish is behind you with a shotgun. Quick is outside with a rifle, and every exit from this building is being watched by my people. You came here thinking you were collecting money. Instead, you walked into a trap." Bumpy stood up slowly. "Here is what is going to happen. You are going to leave Harlem tonight and never come back. You are going to tell Torino that Bumpy Johnson says Harlem is off limits, and if I see any of you north of 110th Street again, you'll disappear." The 3 men left without another word. "How did you know they were coming?" Marcus asked. "Tony called me the minute they left last week. That is what loyalty buys you. Sun information, early warning systems, a network of people who keep you safe because you keep them safe." The third lesson came at dawn when they visited the Harlem Numbers operation. Marcus had expected to see a criminal enterprise, but what he found looked more like a legitimate business. Dozens of people working phones, recording bets, calculating payouts, managing money. "This is what real power looks like," Bumpy explained. "Not some punk with a gun on a street corner. This employs 200 people directly and supports maybe 500 families indirectly. Runners, collectors, accountants, security, drivers, lookouts. It generates over $50,000 a week in revenue and provides a service that people actually want. Marcus was beginning to understand. How do you keep it running? What about the police relationships? Bumpy said. I know which cops to pay, which politicians to support, which judges to cultivate. I've been building those relationships for 30 years. You think you can just show up with a gun and take over all of this? At 8 a.m., they went to Small's Paradise, where Bumpy held court every morning, meeting with community leaders, settling disputes, making decisions that affected thousands of people. A teenage mother came to him with a problem. Her baby needed surgery, but she couldn't afford it. Bumpy arranged for the hospital bill to be paid. A small business owner was being harassed by city inspectors demanding bribes. Bumpy made a phone call, and the harassment stopped. Two families were feuding over a property dispute that was threatening to turn violent. Bumpy listened to both sides and negotiated a solution that satisfied everyone. You see this? Bumpy asked Marcus. This is why I've lasted 30 years. Not because I am the toughest guy in Harlem, but because people need me. I solve problems. I keep the peace. I make life better for people who don't have anywhere else to turn. At noon, they visited the warehouse where Bumpy stored his weapons. Not just guns, but files. Thousands of documents containing information about everyone who mattered in New York. Police records, political connections, financial information, family secrets. This is my real weapon, Bumpy said, gesturing to the filing cabinet's information. I know which judge has a gambling problem, which cop is cheating on his wife, which politician is taking bribes from the mob. I know who owes money to whom, who is sleeping with whom, who has secrets they'd kill to protect. Marcus was overwhelmed. How do you keep track of all this? Patience, organization, and understanding that knowledge is more valuable than bullets. At 3 p.m., they sat down for what Bumpy called the final lesson. They were back in the room where this had all started, 16 hours earlier. Now I am going to give you a choice, Bumpy said. I can let you go back to your corner, back to your small-time drug dealing, back to thinking that violence is the answer to everything, in which case, you'll be dead within 6 months. Either killed by the police, killed by rivals, or killed by someone smarter than you. What is the other choice? You work for me. You learn this business the right way. You understand that real power takes time to build, patience to maintain, and wisdom to wield. You stop being a punk with a gun and start being a businessman with a brain. Marcus looked around the room, at Fish and Quick, who'd been with Bumpy for decades, at the photographs on the walls showing Bumpy with mayors, judges, celebrities, civil rights leaders, at the evidence of a life spent building something that lasted. Why would you trust me after I tried to kill you? Bumpy smiled. Because 40 years ago, I was you, young, angry, convinced that violence was strength. Stephanie St. Clair took me in, taught me the difference between being feared and being respected. She saved my life by teaching me that the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun. It is a mind that knows how to use power responsibly. He leaned forward. I am 60 years old, son. I've survived longer than any man in this business has a right to survive. But I am not going to live forever. Someone needs to carry on what I've built. Someone needs to protect Harlem when I am gone. And you think that could be me? I think you've got the hunger. The question is whether you've got the patience to learn and the wisdom to grow. Marcus thought about everything he'd seen in the past 24 hours. The complexity of Bumpy's organization, the loyalty he commanded, the respect he'd earned, the difference between ruling through fear and leading through strength. What do I have to do? Start at the bottom. Learn every aspect of this business. Understand that every person in this organization matters. From the lowest runner to the highest lieutenant, prove that you can be trusted with small responsibilities before I give you bigger ones. Marcus nodded. And if I mess up, then you die. But not because I kill you, because this business kills people who aren't smart enough to survive it. Bumpy stood up, walked to the door. Cut him loose, he told Fish and Quick. Marcus is going to work the numbers route on 135th Street. Minimum wage. 6 days a week. No special treatment. As they were cutting the zip ties, Marcus called out, "Mr. Johnson, why didn't you just kill me?" Bumpy turned back. "Because, son, dead men can't learn, and the streets of Harlem have seen enough dead boys who thought they were men." Marcus Williams worked for Bumpy Johnson for the next 14 months, until Bumpy's death from a heart attack in July 1968. By then, Marcus had learned enough to take over a small piece of the organization, which he ran successfully for the next 20 years. He never forgot the 24 hours that changed his life. The night he walked into Small's paradise planning to kill a legend, and walked out understanding what legends are actually made of. Not violence, not fear, but the kind of power that builds communities instead of destroying them.